Is it permissible to collaborate with non-Muslim student clubs for good causes on campus? This is a question that was asked by a student at Boston University, and the answer is yes, of course. Collaborating with non-Muslim student clubs and organizations on good things is great with some conditions. First, we have to understand what is good. To define what good is, this is for us from the Islamic perspective important. So a moral matter. This is a cause that matters in Islam. So this is the first thing. The second, we have to be clear that when we collaborate, there should be intentionality. You have to have some reason to collaborate, not for the sake of collaborating, but for the sake of magnifying one's impact, because you need that coalition, for example. The other thing to keep in mind is part of collaboration and coalitions in Islam requires us to accept people as they are in terms of that's who I'm working with, but also we have to come as a whole package. So we can't compromise on Islamic principles. We can't say, you know what, I'll change something about Islam in order for this collaboration to work. A lot of students today, for example, are asking about collaborating with organizations and student clubs that refuse to condemn genocide. And most Muslim clubs refuse to do that. So the question about who to collaborate with starts to come up often. Why are you okay collaborating with those people that you don't agree with on theology or politics, but you're okay collaborating with an interfaith group on a homeless shelter or on a food drive in the local community? There should be a very compelling reason for the MSA or Muslim students to collaborate with outside organizations. There has to be something compelling, strategic, beneficial about it. And usually it is to amplify one's impact. Now, there are a lot of positive examples we see from Muslim student associations and other groups like them. Interfaith food drives, you have also homeless outreach, you have environmental protection initiatives on campus. Sometimes they'll work on political issues, policy issues, anti-racism, divesting from bombs that drop on innocent people in Palestine, divesting at a university level from organizations or companies that deal with weapons. And so a lot of students find it easy when it's something that obvious, anti-genocide. But when it comes to some of the local work, it requires a little bit of nuance, strategy. But by default, in general, yes, it is permissible. Make sure the conditions are in place. What are the main responses to atheists and agnostics about why Muslims believe in God? This is a question that was asked by a student at Yale University. Muslims believe in God for many intellectually justified reasons. First, we believe that Allah created us with what's called a fitrah, natural disposition. It's a faculty that recognizes God. So this is a foundation. Why? Because in philosophy, there's something called foundational knowledge. By definition, it's true. That is the knowledge upon which everything else is built. So we believe in the fitrah. Now, this is an a priori type of knowledge, requires explaining why we believe in it, how you recognize it's true from a rational perspective. The fitrah, for example, in times of extreme hardship or need, will call upon the Creator, will call upon God, sometimes even by an atheist, agnostic, someone who is not practicing at all. But also, the fitrah is that which yearns for higher ideals. It's not just about base desires. But moving on, there are many rational reasons for Muslims to believe in God. And if we were to summarize these in just a few points, think about first and foremost the reality that we're able to learn. Knowledge is sought and knowledge is accessed and knowledge is facilitated through sense experience, what we call empiricism. So you observe, and also rationalism, but also testimony. And when you think of testimony, you learn about things from other people all the time. Testimony here about revelation is one example. Revelatory knowledge like the Quran. The Quran is a proof of God. The fine-tuning of the universe is a proof of God. The reality of the cosmological argument in terms of its specifics and different forms points to God. The contingency argument, the argument from necessity. I want you to imagine an endless row of falling dominoes, but it's infinite. You can't have the last domino falling in front of you if the one before it didn't fall, and the one before it didn't fall, and the one before it. So you can't have an infinite row of dominoes and claim that the universe always existed, for example. And so when you ask about the universe, like other physical things, it didn't have to exist, and yet it does. So what caused it to exist? Everything we observe in the world doesn't support the possibility of an infinite reality. It's a paradox in the physical realm. There's also something called the argument from design. It's a series of arguments. And this basically states that all these scientific disciplines that we study, They point to a finely tuned universe that's intelligently designed. This is one of the main reasons a number of prominent ex-atheist professors and academics actually became believers in God. How overwhelming the evidence is, how perfectly arranged it is. The origins of the universe points to God, and the origins of life points to God as well. So Muslims find evidence in all types of arguments: conceptual thought, rationality, beauty, ontological reasoning, cosmological argument, the fine-tuning, objective morality, and of course the miraculous final message from God to humanity. The point is that we rely on all branches of knowledge and not just one, but we use each faculty that God has given us in the right place. How do we summarize the proof that Islam is true to other people on campus? This is a question that was asked by a student at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. When summarizing the evidence for Islam's truth, it's important to acknowledge that something being true means that there is accessible proof, but not everyone will accept truth regardless of how much evidence you give them. So this applies to everyday life. You see things in the world where there's so much evidence, like a genocide, and people will reject all of that evidence and refuse to accept the truth. So you recognize here, even from the Islamic lens, if you're presenting evidence, it doesn't necessitate that everyone will accept it. For a sincere pursuit of truth regarding Islam, we need several elements to be there. The first, humility, that the evidence that I see, I'll accept. I'll allow the evidence to shape my beliefs, as millions of converts in the world do every single year. The second, we believe in a proper, balanced approach to what's called epistemology, the theory of knowledge. So we use all sources of knowledge in the right way. Rather than relying heavily on only one, we use empiricism, sense experience, what usually will fall under a lot of scientific observations. All of that is a sign of God and a faculty God has given us. But also al-aql, reasoning, rationalism. This also can point to a number of things that lead you to God. This helps you to observe that the message, the miraculous message of the Quran, clearly is from God. And the third is that we rely on the branch of testimony. And so this helps us when we vet and we verify that something is true. This helps us to move closer to truthful information. And of course, revelatory knowledge. The third thing you have to keep in mind, aside from all the branches of knowledge, is that establishing God's existence and presenting the proofs that Prophet Muhammad is the Prophet of God, the final messenger of God, and you demonstrate to someone that the Quran is divine in its origins, all of this is something a Muslim on campus should know in this day and age. In the 21st century, every Muslim should know at least an intro to the proofs that Prophet Muhammad clearly, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the messenger of God. The Quran clearly is miraculous. You can rationally prove this as well. And when you discuss Islam with other people, don't be shy to say, I don't know, but I can find out for you and give you a reference or a resource. And also focus on the fact that the Quran itself is what points to God, what points to Islam being true, its preservation, its miraculous elements, its internal consistency. You can focus on the character of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his achievements, fulfilled predictions. You can focus on Islam's logical coherence, its comprehensiveness in its principles and how to approach life in a balanced way. You can focus on historical evidence supporting the claims of Islam and Muslims, and of course the transformative impact of Islam on the individual life, the family life, and society at large. Remember, at the end of the day, you present evidence and someone has to be sincere in accepting. You do your part and you, of course, engage with genuine engagement and dialogue. Our responsibility really is to present Islam in our character, in our da'wah when someone asks, in a very clear, respectful, wise way, and we embody it as well. And we ask Allah to guide us and guide others through us. Can Muslim students on campus partake in non-Islamic holidays? For example, Halloween, Christmas, Easter. What if something's happening on campus? What can I do? This is a question that was asked by a student at Florida State University. In short, generally, Muslims do not participate in religious holidays or holidays that have religious connotations. Especially, there's no doubt and no difference of opinion when it's more obvious, like Christmas, Halloween, Easter has a religious or type of philosophical connotation historically as well. It could be paganism, polytheism, it could be Christianity, it could be anything else. So these holidays do have religious connotations. I don't have to go into the details here. You know this. I'm giving you the framework, the principle. If all you want to know, is it allowed? Is it not allowed? Christmas, you already know what it is. So it's about Jesus, Of course, here for Christians, the belief itself is very problematic, and this is type of shirk. This is not something that we can celebrate in any way. Easter, of course, for those who don't know, Christians commemorate the crucifixion, the resurrection of Jesus. We don't even believe this happened. This goes against Islamic monotheism and our theology. This goes against what we believe to be historically true as well. Halloween has pagan origins and involves a lot of practices that are contrary to Islamic teachings. And in fact, some of the things that were involved historically with Halloween are very dark and very problematic as well. May Allah guide us all to what is best. So remember, imitation sometimes is a form of flattery. You want to imitate the things that are good. Public holidays that we celebrate are the two Eids as Muslims. When it comes to private things, personal things, like an anniversary, that's a different matter according to many scholars of fiqh, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about any event that happens on campus that has a religious connotation to it. There's nothing wrong with politely explaining your position when you're invited to a holiday event, or using it as an occasion, an opportunity to inform people about Islamic holidays. Push for some kind of Eid celebration if they want to be inclusive. Focus on strengthening your own religious celebration. Make the two Eids on campuses for those who live away from family and they're not home for Eid. Make them as enjoyable for the Muslims as possible. And of course, participate in neutral campus events that celebrate academic achievements, cultural diversity, with nothing prohibited in the gathering and without religious significance as well. And remember, respecting other people's right to celebrate their holidays in their own way doesn't mean we have to celebrate. Tolerance is not conformity. Tolerance doesn't mean you have to do what other people do. In fact, that's kind of intolerant when you think about it. May Allah guide us all to what's best and protect us and make it easy for us. Allahumma ameen. Can Muslim students, men and women, celebrate Eid together on campus? This is a question that was asked by students at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And in short, yes, Muslim students should definitely have some kind of local Eid prayer if the community doesn't have it. If the masjid has it, they should be part of the Eid prayer of the local community. In fact, one of the goals of the Eid is to bring all the Muslims in a locality together. But as for a separate event like a Eid dinner, a celebration of sorts, you could have something like this. Just make sure, if it's for the MSA and Muslim students, there's Islamic guidelines like any other event. There is some kind of gender segregation even at the event that is appropriate, that's comfortable for women and men to enjoy the event as much as possible. That it's something that includes, modest dress and halal food, that there's some kind of coordination with the MSA for a campus-wide celebration. Find the right space, request the accommodation from the university if it's needed. But yeah, do something for those who are not going back home, if possible. And just remember, it gives people a sense of belonging, but it should still be a form of worship, right? So sometimes people see Eid as a day in which they can stray away from Allah or do the wrong thing. The point is to get closer to Allah as an act of worship. To celebrate Eid, literally a festivity, it's an act of worship. And so make sure you're not disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you're enjoying it. And if there's a social component after, an organization like the MSA has an event, if there's a lot of socializing and like a sport or a game or something else, it's usually better to have two different plans, a men's committee, a women's committee, and let everyone enjoy the social events, of course, in a manner that is permissible, fun, enjoyable for everyone, inshallah ta'ala. You're there to celebrate Eid for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a matchmaking event. So enjoy it in a way that is pleasing to Allah and focus on your friends and focus on whoever else around you, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah make it easy for all of our students and accept from them. Eid Mubarak as well for those who are celebrating Eid around that time. Allahumma ameen. What if Eid celebration takes place on a day in which I have exams or a really important class or some kind of work on campus? This is a question that was asked by a student at the University of Georgia. So when Eid falls on a day with academic work, responsibilities, commitments, first of all, plan ahead. Islamic holidays are easy to follow, even if it might be one day off if you're following a specific local lunar calendar, but you can anticipate these conflicts well in advance. You should have an idea before every semester, when is Eid coming? When is it going to be? The second thing to keep in mind is to communicate early to your professors in many universities around the world where Muslim students are a minority, especially when it comes to North America. Yeah, you just tell them about, the religious obligation of Eid prayer, and it's so understandable. There's so many accommodations these days when it comes to university policy. In fact, you can't be reprimanded or punished or face consequences for leaving on the day of Eid when it comes to your academic progress. And that's something you're protected with in the US and in Canada, for example. But request the accommodation well in advance. And so most institutions will allow you to reschedule an exam, to make up missed classwork, to take time off for religious observance. But find the balance. Make sure if you absolutely cannot miss a commitment for some reason, make sure you attend at least the Eid prayer early in the morning before a specific maybe class that you're okay going to at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. as an example. And join these celebration events after your obligations if you must. But generally, remember this, it is a part of the Muslim identity. So if you are a minority living in a country, as a Muslim, try to always prioritize the habit, the practice. The day of Eid is for our Muslim community. I'm going to go and pray. I'm going to celebrate with my community. I'm going to meet people I don't know. I'm going to make plans with Muslim friends. Know your rights as well. Most universities have policies protecting you in this area. This is not something you should feel ever ashamed about. Make it a family practice and a habit that we all will enjoy the day of Eid. This is an act of worship. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to enjoy it in a manner that's pleasing to Him. Allahumma ameen. If you have questions regarding campus life as a Muslim student, put it in the comments below.